Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, there's a lot of buzz around this Tennessee program heading into 2024, but I feel like all the conversation around this Tennessee team's going to the offensive side of the football, obviously headlined by the young and talented quarterback Nico. Dill, I think the strength of this Tennessee team might be on the defensive side of the football heading into 2024, and that's not to say that I'm not a believer in Nico and what this Tennessee offense is going to be. I just trust Josh Heupel offenses to put points up on the board. What not enough people are talking about is, one, how good this Tennessee defense was in 2023, and I think arguably gets better heading into 2024. You talk about a playoff contending team. I think Tennessee checks a lot of those boxes. Want to dive into the defense, talk about what makes this defense not only really good in 2023, but how they take that jump in the 2024 season. Really excited to get into it. Before we do it, as always, massive shout out to the Tennessee fans. Dill, it is no secret that you might be the highest person in the country on this Tennessee team heading into 2024. We've talked a lot of Tennessee ball over the last couple of weeks. The amount of support from the Tennessee fans, it's been absolutely amazing. We appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And Dill, I'm going to let you cook here. Let's talk about what I think makes this Tennessee defense really special in 2024, and it starts with the pass rush.
And that's a unit, frankly, I think was good. I mean, you saw them. They were 17th in the country last year in sack percentage, right around a little over 8%. But frankly, you look at how much talent's on this unit, it feels like a unit that can honestly be well into the top 10, possibly into the top 5. And that's not only just guys like James Pierce Jr. taking that next step, and you know how talented he is. You see him, but can he be more consistently dominant? Can some of those inside guys be more productive? I look at Omar Norman-Lott, Bryson Easton, both really, really athletic on that inside. Guys I think can be productive. But I look at this unit as a whole. I think there were some games where you just didn't see them rushing as a team as well as some of those other teams. Like when you see Penn State or a Michigan or even a Texas A&M, those teams really rushed well as a team. They were able to collapse pockets on the guys. I thought sometimes you saw Tennessee rushing a little bit as individuals. They weren't maintaining rush lanes. They were letting quarterbacks, whether it was get outside the pocket, whether it was sneak up and then take off and scramble. You saw that in the Mizzou game and Florida game especially. And those are the things that I felt like came back to bite them in some of those losses they had. So, again, I look at this unit. It's so talented. I think they're just like some small tweaks they make to kind of what they're doing and just guys taking that natural step. I think this unit should be well into the top 10, top 5.
I think the fascinating conversation in terms of how to maximize this Tennessee pass rush really has nothing to do with James Pierce Jr. Like, we kind of know that he's the best edge rusher in the country heading into 2024. I think going to be a top 5 NFL draft pick in the next 8 months. Dill, I think what makes this Tennessee team kind of take that step is having the other players, specifically the edge rushers around James Pierce, step up. You look at all the elite pass rushes that we see in the country. I mean, what made Michigan so special last year, not only did they have some dudes that could get after the passer, they were all over the defensive line. You know James Pierce, and he's going to get that special treatment, right? Tight ends are going to be chipping. Running backs are going to be helping in pass pro. He is going to get a lot of attention, which allows some of these other rather young cats that I think we're really excited about to get some really good opportunities to kind of fill the stat sheet up themselves. Still, I think another really good example is Florida State last year with Jared Verse kind of being the dog, and then Patrick Payton kind of just feasting on some really good opportunities. I think
and that's a good point. Can you get your guys like Caleb Herring, some of those really young, even a Jordan Ross or Josh Josephs, a guy who I've certainly been kind of looking for to break out and play at a much higher level, it feels like, more consistently. Again, you have a handful of guys who can be that second edge rusher who should also be able to put some numbers up. I think that's kind of what you're looking for when you break out. It's a little bit more to me about rushing as a team, not just like rushing as me, if you will.
Yeah, and I think we've talked Tennessee so much on the recruiting trail, especially over the last 24 months, and we've always said the blue chip talent that they're collecting specifically along the line of scrimmage, it's going to pay off. And you kind of feel like 2024 is that year, right? Joshua Josephs, former blue chip. Tyree West, former blue chip. Caleb Herring, former blue chip. Jordan Ross, 5-star coming in. There's so much talent that's either going into year 2, year 3 that we kind of expect to take that step. I think the question is, who are going to be those guys that can complement James Pierce and kind of take that Tennessee pass rush up to that next level. I think the second conversation, and Dilla, I think a really fascinating conversation is, do they get better at linebacker in 2024? I think on the surface level, you'll see a lot of national media analysts get up there and say, oh, we got big time question marks at linebacker. They lose their leading tacklers from last year, and Beasley and Elijah Herring. Aaron Beasley's a dude. I think Aaron Beasley played very good football for Tennessee over the last couple of years. Now, Elijah Herring, I think he had a lot of tackles. I don't think he was a very good linebacker for Tennessee. Deal. I think there's an argument to be made that they get better at the off-ball linebacker position in the 2024 season.
No, and that obviously is very contingent on a guy like Arian Carter or Jeremiah Thielander or Edwin Spillman, whoever it's going to be. I mean, it's probably not going to be Edwin Spillman. I just want to shout him out because I think he's
kind of a dude.
But I do think it's very contingent on that second guy just playing at a much higher level. Because you look, Keenan Pili and Aaron Beasley, I think both should be – I expect to be really, really good linebackers. Aaron Beasley showed it last year. Keenan Pili, when we watch him at BYU, when we watch him in that Virginia game, very excited about what he's going to be. To me, though, I think you're right. At the end of the day, Elijah Herring, a lot of plays that should have been 4-yard plays turned into 7-yard plays, or a lot of plays that should have been a 3rd and 10 stop turned into a first down because he just wasn't that great in space. He wasn't that premier athlete, and it's just really hard to play linebacker at this point. And you can make your tackles. You can make plays inside the box, in between the tackle box, I should say, and that's all well and good. But if you can't play in space, and he really struggled in that realm, you just are such a liability for that team. And again, when you looked at teams with athletic quarterbacks like Mizzou or Alabama, it really reared its ugly head. They need that second linebacker to be able to be comfortable in space, be more functional, and be more athletic.
Yeah, I think you talk about Keenan Pili and say, we're going to need that experience. And I think Keenan Pili, what we saw like a quarter of him in that 2023 season. What you saw was really good football at Keenan Pili. He's going to have to be that veteran, right? I believe he's a 6-year senior. He's going to be surrounded by a lot of young backers. Arian Carter's my guy. I think Arian Carter's a fascinating case study where, not case study, but was was recruited as a running back for a while during his recruitment out of high school. I think he's still getting his feet wet at that linebacker position. And not only as an off-ball linebacker do you want to have those elite physical traits, which Arian Carter has in spades, but I think for Arian Carter, having that game slow down a little bit, understanding how to pick through traffic and kind of have the right run fit, so to speak, that's kind of where Arian Carter needed to take that step. I think he's going to take that step going into year 2. But I don't think you're far off with Edwin Spillman. I mean, I think you are looking for some depth to emerge at the linebacker spot. Loved his film coming out of Lipscomb Academy in Nashville. I think this kid can play as a freshman. I don't
mean to take anything from Spillman. I also don't want to pretend Jeremiah Thielander can't play because I'm watching that Georgia game when Thielander got a fair amount of burn. I thought he was playing really, really good. So, again, you certainly have answers for that second linebacker spot. If you get 2 guys who are really comfortable and look like top-end SEC linebackers, if you will, I think that's kind of a big, big upgrade because last year, Elijah Herring, there's a reason he's at Memphis now.
That's kind of what I'm saying is I don't think it's a coincidence that he transferred after the spring. I think he got a little vibe of like Arian Carter, Jeremiah Thielander coming on and said, all right, I better find a new landing spot here because I don't know if I'm going to be the starter at this linebacker position in 2024. Last storyline here, and I think probably the biggest storyline that you have is the secondary, where that's where you have the questions, especially with Jordan Thomas going down at that star position, where I think it sounds like a true freshman Boo Carter is going to be the guy at that star position. I'm a massive fan of Boo Carter, been a massive fan since he's been a high school cat. Dill, let's start at the boundary cornerback position where you got 2 true sophomores that we think they're young, but we think they're really damn good heading into 2024.
In Jermod McCoy, I am pretty much positive he's really, really good. Had a great year for Oregon State. That's a huge, huge get for them in the portal. And then it's Ricky Gibson. If he can you saw him come on late. He was starting to play a little bit more. You see some of the athletic traits that, again, you might have been missing a little bit with the corners of past, if you will, at Tennessee. What I'm going to be looking for is if this Tennessee team can just play a little bit more. I want to say just challenge wide receivers more, challenge teams in the past more, because last year it felt like they had to go to a lot of zone because again, when they went to man, when good receivers were playing against them, it did feel like there were moments. You think about it, what Isaiah Bond was able to do at times in that Alabama game, giving up those big shots just because you didn't have premier boundary corners who could play man to man without much help. I'm going to be looking at for this year because you got to get that completion percentage down to opposing teams. That was way high. It's been high for a little while. They've stopped giving up big plays, which is nice, but that has to come down. And I'm looking, can you get really high level play out of these cornerbacks, allow them to challenge wide receivers more with a little bit less help, and try to just compress throwing windows because there were way too many.
I have a take on that. I think over the first couple of years of Josh Heupel's tenure, I don't think they had the guys to do. I just don't think they had the talent on defense to really challenge those elite wide receivers in the SEC. I think you have the guys heading into 2024. I would like to see kind of a mentality shift in general for this Tennessee defense and kind of recognize this Tennessee defense as not just a complementary piece to the offense and start saying, hey, we can win football games because our defense is smothering. And I still think in 2023, although the defense was really good, right? Top 25 in scoring defense, top 25 in yards per play allowed. I do still think they had that vibe of, hey, we're going to play that bend but don't break and let our Tennessee
I don't think they had the talent in the secondary. There's a reason that their guys weren't going to the draft or being day 1, day 2, day 3 even picks.
They all had the transfer portal.
They weren't NFL guys. I think you're starting to look. Ricky Gibson kind of gives those vibes off. Jermod McCoy certainly gives those vibes off. Then you kind of look in that back end. Jacoby Thomas, guy who's worked his way up through that Middle Tennessee team. He's got a lot of talent. Can he put it together? Boo Carter is a guy who, as Michigan fans, we kind of were hoping could come in and be the next Mike Sanders, still the next great one in that nickel spot. Obviously ends up at Tennessee. Sounds like he's going to play, but he has the talent to be that guy, be a guy who plays in a defense that, again, their goal is to shut teams down, not just give up field goals or try to avoid big plays.
I think the one thing that I'll be looking for Tennessee, the big concern that I have is the depth. You know what I mean? You got 2 true sophomores start at the boundary cornerback spot. You got a true freshman that we think is going to start at the star spot. It's a young defense, but you also kind of look behind them and say, all right, do we have a ton of proven commodities behind some of those young cats? I'm not saying Tennessee doesn't. I'm just saying we're not sure if they do.
I will say I think Will Brooks gives them a lot of versatility at that spot. Again, probably doesn't have that top-end talent you're necessarily looking for, but a guy who I think can play all 3 of those safety positions if you include the star as well. I think he does give them some of that versatility. Again, I think obviously any team that's going to go win at the highest level needs to stay healthy to an extent. And you can't have brutal injuries, so that's just kind of a given. But their top-end talent, it looks the way I think it should look at Tennessee now.
The more I talk about depth, it's a little bit more of you're going to be playing opposite of an offense that's playing really damn fast, which is going to make the defense have to play a lot of snaps. And so how does that depth hold up? You're a little less concerned about it in the secondary because you can play those cats a lot. A little bit more concerned in the front 7, which we think they have the depth in the front 7. I think the last thing I would say, kind of similar conversation we've had about the Miami Hurricanes. All right, we might have some question marks about how good the secondary is going to be, and we think it could be good. It's just young, a little bit unproven, but we think it's going to be good. But even if you have question marks about it, what's the best way to maybe mask a secondary? Be dominant with the pass rush. And I think this Tennessee defensive line can be dominant as a pass rush unit, which kind of leads me to be a little bit less concerned about the depth and the talent level in the secondary. I think not enough people are talking about this Tennessee offense, and quite frankly, not enough people talking about this Tennessee team a month ago.
And I get it because obviously everyone loves the new 5-star talent quarterbacks. Like when we were Michigan fan, when JJ was coming up, that's what we were talking about.
We were talking damn about the defense. We're talking about JJ McCarthy only.
But now, look, the defense took over. I look at this Tennessee defense. This should be a really, really good unit. I'm kind of excited to see if they really kind of get aggressive in a way we haven't seen Tennessee get aggressive because, again, I do think they at least have the boundary corners that they haven't had, and it feels like at least under Heupel's tenure. So I'm really interested to see if you see their style shift a little bit from that bend but don't break to being like, we're just going to try to suffocate teams.
You're kind of selling me on this Tennessee team. You know, a month ago, you were like, hey, Tennessee's kind of the real deal. So, all right, we'll see. And as we've kind of dove into this Tennessee team a couple of different times during the last couple of weeks, I'm kind of coming on board to the Vols in 2024. Going to be a really fun team to do a lot of game predictions for. We'll cut it there again. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.